Have you ever had that sinking feeling that no matter how hard you work, the goalposts keep moving? You save, you invest, you follow the rules, yet the house you wanted 5 years ago is now double the price. The grocery bill for the same items has skyrocketed. You're running faster on the treadmill just to stay in the same spot. What if I told you that this isn't an accident? What if I told you that the feeling of running in place is actually a feature, not a bug, of the financial system we live in? There is a disturbing theory that economists whisper about, but politicians refuse to acknowledge. It suggests that the entire global economy, the banking system, the stock market, your pension fund, and the very money in your bank account operates on the exact same mechanical logic as a scam. It's a structure that only survives as long as it can find new people to feed into, the bottom to pay off the people at the top. We are going to peel back the layers of this onion, and I have to warn you, once you understand how the machine actually works, you will never look at a dollar bill, a bank, or a government promise the same way again. The question isn't will the system break? The question is, do you realize you are the one holding it up? To understand the modern world, we have to go back to a dusty Boston office in 1920. This is where a charismatic Italian immigrant named Charles Ponzi accidentally wrote the playbook for the 21st century. Ponzi didn't start out trying to destroy lives. He found a loophole involving international postal reply, coupon stamps. Basically, he realized he could buy them in Europe for pennies and redeem them in the US for dollars. It was a legitimate arbitrage opportunity. He promised investors a 50% return in 90 days. In a world where banks paid 5% a year, this was like offering water to a man dying of thirst. Money poured in. The problem? Ponzi couldn't actually buy enough stamps to cover the volume of investment, but the cash was coming in so fast, he didn't need to buy stamps. He simply took the money from investor B and gave it to investor A. Investor A, thrilled with his profit, told his friends C, D, and E for a few months. Everyone was rich. Everyone was a genius. But the math of a Ponzi scheme is the math of a cancer. It requires infinite growth to survive. The moment the flow of new suckers slows down, the whole thing When Ponzi fell, he wiped out the life savings of thousands of ordinary people. We look back at those people and think, how could they be so naive? But here is the uncomfortable truth. Take away the illegal label, strip away the stigma, and look purely at the mechanics. If a system pays off old obligations using new money, requires constant expansion to prevent collapse, and relies entirely on faith, then the global economy isn't just similar to a Ponzi scheme. It is the largest one in human history. Most people have a very childlike view of money. We imagine that when we deposit $1,000 into a bank, that money sits in a vault, waiting for us to come back and get it. We imagine that when the government spends money, it's spending tax dollars it collected from us. Both of those assumptions are false. The money in your pocket is not a store of value. It is a debt note. In our modern system, money is created out of thin air, but only when debt is created. Let's look at the banks. We operate under something called fractional reserve banking. It sounds technical, but it's actually a magic trick. When you deposit that $1,000, the bank is not required to keep it safe. They are only required to keep a tiny fraction, traditionally around 10% or less. They keep $100 and lend out the other, $900 to someone else to buy a car. That person takes the $900 and pays the car dealer. The car dealer deposits that $900 into their bank. That bank keeps $90 and lends out $810. From your initial single deposit of $1,000, the banking system can spin out 10 times that amount in new money. It's a multiplier effect. On paper, you have $1,000. The car dealer has $900. The next guy has $810. Everyone feels rich. But if everyone went to the bank on the same day to ask for their cash, the doors would lock, the ATMs would shut down, and the police would be called. The money isn't there. It never was. It's just a digital claim on a pyramid of debt. So, how did we get here? How did we normalize a system where money is imaginary? There is a specific date that changed the DNA of our economy, August 15th, 1971. Before this date, under the Bretton Woods Agreement, the US dollar was tethered to gold. You couldn't just print more dollars unless you dug more gold out of the ground. Gold imposes discipline. It forces governments to live within their means because nature limits the supply. But in 1971, the US was spending too much on the Vietnam War and social programs. They were running out of gold. So, President Richard Nixon went on television and temporarily suspended the convertibility of the dollar into gold. That temporary move became permanent. In that moment, the anchor was cut. The entire world moved to a fiat standard. Fiat is Latin for let it be done. It means the money has value simply because the government says it does. Since 1971, the graph of global debt has gone vertical. Without the discipline of gold, governments realized they could borrow from the future to pay for the present. They could promise pensions, fund wars, and build bridges without raising taxes. They just issued more debt. But remember the rule of the Ponzi. You need new investors to pay off the old ones. In the government context, you need new debt to pay off the old debt. This brings us to the most dangerous part of the scheme, the social contract. Almost every major economy from the US to Europe to Japan runs its social safety nets on a pyramid structure. We call it social security or national pensions. The logic is simple. The current workforce pays taxes to support the current retirees. When the current workforce retires, the next generation will pay for them. This works beautifully if the population is a triangle, lots of young people at the bottom supporting a few old people at the top. But look at the demographics of the West and East Asia today. We stopped having kids. The triangle has inverted. We have a massive generation of retirees, the baby boomers, expecting to be paid, and a shrinking generation of workers beneath them to foot the bill. In Japan, they are already selling more adult diapers than baby diapers. Think about the economic implication of that. The new investors, the babies, aren't arriving fast enough to pay the old investors, the retirees. Closing parenthesis. So, how do governments fill the gap? They can't tax the young enough, there aren't enough of them. So they print the difference. They create money to fulfill the promises. But printing money to pay a debt is like pouring water into a bucket of milk to make it look full. You have the same volume, but the nutrition, the purchasing power, is diluted. You see this pyramid logic everywhere, not just in government. Look at the housing market. For decades, real estate has been sold as the ultimate investment. House prices always go up, they say. But why do they go up? Is a house built in 1980 structurally better today than it was then? No, it's actually decaying. Prices go up because the system floods the market with cheap credit mortgages, allowing people to bid up the price of assets. You buy a house not because of the rental income it produces, but because you believe someone else will pay more for it in 5 years. This is the greater fool theory. You are betting that there is a greater fool coming up behind you with a bigger loan. But what happens when interest rates rise? What happens when the young generation is too broke to qualify for the loan? The bottom of the pyramid steps away. We are seeing this right now in real time. When the bottom drops out, the prices at the top have no support. Now, you might be thinking, if this is all a scam, why hasn't it collapsed yet? That is the genius of the central bank. In a normal Ponzi scheme, when the operator runs out of money, he goes to jail. In the global economy, when the government runs out of money, they change the rules. They use a tool called quantitative easing. It's a polite term for counterfeiting. When the banks gambled away the economy in 2008, the Federal Reserve didn't let the pyramid collapse. They printed trillions of dollars to buy the bad debts. They patched the hole in the hull with paper money. But here is the catch. There is no such thing as a free lunch. You cannot create value out of nothing. When they print trillions to save the banks or fund the government, they are stealing value from every existing dollar in circulation. This is what inflation actually is. It's not just prices going up because of supply chain issues. It is the currency losing value because there is too much of it. Inflation is the quiet way the pyramid demands its sacrifice. It transfers wealth from the poor and the savers who hold cash to the rich and the indebted who hold assets. It is a slow motion default. The government will pay you your pension and the bank will give you your deposit. But the money they give you won't buy half of what it used to. They are fulfilling the letter of the contract while violating the spirit of it. The global debt is now over $300 trillion. That is 3 times the size of the entire global economy. We owe more than we can ever produce. If this were a business, it would be bankrupt. If it were an individual, they would be in jail. But because it is the system, we call it modern finance. So, why am I telling you this? Is it to make you panic? No, panic is useless. I'm telling you this so you can stop playing the game by their rules. The people who get crushed in a pyramid scheme are the ones who believe the lie, the ones who think the paper money is safety, that the government will save them, and that the party will last forever. The people who survive are the ones who understand the mechanics. Stop holding your wealth in fiat currency. Cash is a melting ice cube. It is designed to lose value so the system can stay afloat. Own real things. Real wealth is tangible. It's land, gold, businesses, commodities, things that cannot be printed by a central banker with a keyboard. Invest in yourself. The only asset that cannot be inflated away or taxed into oblivion is your ability to produce value. Skills, resilience, and adaptability are the ultimate hedge against a crumbling system. The global economy is a game of musical chairs played on a titanic scale. The music is still playing, the drinks are still flowing, and the markets are still at all-time highs, but the chairs are disappearing one by one. Don't be the one left standing when the music stops. If you want to understand how to build a fortress around your wealth while the world plays with paper fire, you need to stay tuned. We are going to dig deeper into the history of money in the next video. Class dismissed.